am Hela, Odin's firstborn, the rightful heir to the throne and the goddess of death.
You could not live with your own failure. Where did that bring you? Back to me.
How do you think your ancestors got these? You think they paid a fair price? Or did they take it like they took everything else?
I did not break your rules. They simply bent to my power.
It captures the African-American experience.
And welcome back, Internet, to another episode of Views from the 616, the blackest MCU podcast in the multiverse, powered by For All Nerds, where we discuss everything in the MCU from the perspective of people of color. And it is one of your hosts, Tatiana King, aka the Wicked Witch of the West View, the coldest Winter Soldier ever, Tesseract Thompson, and Schrodinger's Cap, joined with my, as always, bespectacled co-host.
Wow, you almost made me forget my new AKAs, but let's go down the list and see if I can do it. It's your boy, Ben Amin, AKA We Was Kangs.
My favorite.
AKA a Theramenace to Society.
Oh, we need some triumphant horns there. Maybe the Final Fantasy victory horns right there. Wow.
Shout outs to Twitter for blessing me with that. I'll get the actual Twitter account who blessed me. Thank you very much, and I'll shout you out next week for real.
Wow, I think they deserve like stickers or something. We gotta send you some stuff.
Word up. And in relation to that, AKA I ain't going out like Willie I ain't going out like Willie Lumpkin. Willie Lumpkin.
You tried, but you failed on that one. But
okay.
You had such a good win. You had such a big win. Ben, I mean, you lived long enough to see yourself become the villain. It only took 2 seconds. That's a shame. But as I said, we're back with...
It was all good 2 seconds ago.
It was. Just like... And hey, it falls right in line with the Timekeepers and the TVA, because we are here to talk all things Loki on Disney+, specifically episode 3, titled Lamentis.
I lament that last AKA.
Woo, before we get into the details of this episode, we got to give you all a basic plot, so listen closely. Like an otherworldly Frodo and Sam, Loki and Sylvie spend a lot of this episode walking and bonding, learning about love, life, and laughter. Not so much on the last one, as they and we are all in lament in this episode 3. Will our heroes escape certain doom? Will they manage to kill each other beforehand? Highly doubtful, as there's still 3 more episodes left. So join us as we discuss one of the more chilled out episodes of Loki. And Ben, I mean, I would say you're putting it nicely, because I'm going to be honest, I didn't really like this episode.
Wow. Okay.
I didn't really like this episode.
Oof.
Not to say that there wasn't some really cool things that we learned. Obviously, there were some. First of all, let me tell you what I did like. Love the visuals. I love the very fantasy-esque approach to this. That last sequence shot in the city of Shirul was phenomenal. Some of the best camera work I've seen, some of the best effect work I've seen. Awesome. But as far as the episode overall, it felt a little disjointed for me, just in terms of pacing. It felt very droll and somber at times, and I wasn't sure about how the 2 characters of Loki and Sylvie, I wasn't sure about their connection or lack thereof. Like, it was something strange about how they were interacting with each other. It just didn't feel natural, felt a bit forced to me. That being said, it wasn't my favorite episode of these MCU shows thus far, but I still gained a lot of information about it, Loki itself.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. What about you?
I was about to do my Skip in person. It's my turn.
It's your turn.
It's my turn. I enjoyed it the more I watched it, right? We all watch for Views from the 616. We always watch these episodes multiple times. The first time I watched it, I was like, ooh.
Yeah.
Oof. Like, I don't know. You know, the second time I watched it, I was like, I don't know.
For the record, I watched it 4 times, if anybody's curious, from beginning to end.
Wow, so. You topped me. The third time, I skipped around in it, and I watched specific scenes and stuff, and that's when I appreciated those specific scenes a bit more than I had the first 2 times. I agree with you completely on everything. It looks phenomenal. Shout out to Kate Herron for the, once again, I mean, just fire, you know, like you said, that last one shot where they're running through the city and it, you know, we don't, you know, no cuts pretty much other than some that could be or couldn't
or
be.
no cuts that we think. I think there are actual digital cuts.
Oh, yeah.
there,
I mean, there's definitely several sequences where it could be
constructed to look like a continuous shot, like a continuous 2 to 3 minute shot.
And even when it isn't, it, you know, even in the 30 to 40 second shots, those are fire. So either way, it works. And the whole episode, I mean, the moon breaking, everything, that was so ill. All that stuff fire. You know, the battles between Loki and Sylvie, everything dope.
Yeah.
I didn't feel that their relationship was as forced as you feel. I felt, I feel that they're both playing a game where they are trying not to divulge as much information to the other one. And
absolutely.
So because of that, you know, it's like a chessboard type of situation. So you're not really getting, while I see people shipping them together immediately, that's really not the tone of the episode
whatsoever. And I'm
or
mad
anything.
At y'all doing that.
Yeah. I mean, people do it with everybody.
Y'all don't have to ship everyone just because they like wink at each other. Like that doesn't mean that we have to be boyfriend and girlfriend, y'all.
Yes, it does. In the Twitterverse and in our comment section on twitch.tv/forallnerds. Yes, it does.
Oh, I like your shirt. We go together. Like, okay.
Let's, you know,
relax.
No. Yeah, chill it out a bit. But I felt like that more of a chessboard feeling between the two of them. So I did not feel like their relationship was forced as much.
Okay.
And so, yeah, overall, I enjoyed the episode.
Yeah, go ahead.
So
you enjoyed it. After all that, you ended up enjoying it.
Yeah, after all that, I ended up enjoying it. But I also feel that it is like this. Shout out to the Canadian lad reviewer on YouTube. They said that it's a bridge episode instead of like using the word filler episode that a lot of people have said, which I definitely disagree that it's a filler episode. But I do feel it's a bridge episode. And then that's something. All right, I have not really been keeping track of like the theories that we've been throwing out on the show. I know for WandaVision, a lot of the theories we threw out were pretty much dead on point for, you know, my support of, you know, Walker and a lot of things.
We've thrown out a few theories already for Loki, and some have already been confirmed.
Yes.
Especially from you. So
yeah, and so that's why like the whole TVA revelation to me this week, I was like, yeah.
It wasn't a surprise.
No, it definitely wasn't because the hints were there all along. Like Mobius loving jet steeds, loving everything from the 90s, you know, talking about, I don't know how long I've been here because time works differently. All these hints were already there. People have already thinking that he's another Loki variant, which I don't think so.
I didn't think so. I thought he was. My theory was that he was a variant of himself, which now seems to be the case.
Yeah, definitely. Yep.
Yeah.
But why is he the special analyst is another question. But that's, you know, might just be rose up in the ranks, you know, at the TVA. Who knows? So the big revelations of this episode didn't really hit me as much either because I was like, oh, all right, you know, that sounds about right. So, and even the one about Shorty, you know, C20, right? We already figured that out last week. I was like, yo, she's talking about she want to go home. She want to go home. Yep. She's not talking about going back to the TVA. You know, she more talk about going to drink some margaritas by the beach.
Definitely.
Shit. I mean, which would you choose? You know, like.
Well, Ben, I mean, you know what time it is. It's time for the themes of the episode. And this theme is actually a little bit straight from our dear social media manager on the Views from the 616 account. We do not control that account, y'all. Y'all swear up and down we're over there playing games, but it's not us. Because that account has a life of its own. And that account also had some koofied out Sylvie and Loki's and having conversation last week. And there was one phrase that was said that makes a lot of sense for this episode. It's about us, my variant brother and sister. So we learn as it's revealed about who Sylvie is, or a little bit about who Sylvie is and the fact that she's a Loki variant, we realize that it seems like all this activity with the TVA about catching this variant, this all centers around Loki. It seems Loki is the one common denominator throughout the various versions of him that is a thorn in the TVA side, okay? And we see, obviously, Sylvie and Loki coming together as, in a sense, brothers in arms. Even though Loki is technically a consultant, as he calls himself, like trying to help the TVA, Sylvie is basically on a mission to completely bring them down. And we don't know what her plan is besides that. Like Loki asked her, well, you're gonna bring them down, create this power vacuum, then walk away. And she's just like, yes.
Mm-hmm.
What is her plan? Is just to get rid of the structure of the TVA and dip out? Like what is her true plan?
I think that is her true plan right now. I don't think, because that's something that Loki says to her. Loki wouldn't just do that. And that's also the difference between her. Like, Loki has always been about power, about getting something and achieving something and having some type of end game. This Sylvie doesn't seem to have that. She just wants to destroy something, which goes back to my theory that that Sylvie is the other analyst or has something to do where she was used by the TVA, because she seems determined to destroy them. But there's also some real questions about like just her whole plan and just what happens when she gets there, right? Because when she gets there and she attacks the guards, she doesn't realize her magic doesn't work there until it doesn't.
So she doesn't have for someone who's always talking about, we gotta have a plan, like, this plan was years in the making. She didn't realize that her magic doesn't work there.
Or she didn't know that already, and it's like, how did she not know that? Especially if she was the other analyst. So that kind of throws that theory out the window, unless she was mind wiped or, something to that extent. But why? Who knows? I'm still not sure where the hell Sylvie comes from or what she's all about on that one. Right.
But in this episode, we see them essentially bonding with each other. It becomes kind of that almost like this lightweight buddy cop approach too. I thought it funny that they essentially bonded over the thoughts of their mother. And it just gave me a lot of B versus S vibes. Like, your mom's name is Martha too? Like, I'm like, okay, so that's the one connecting tissue between you two. Obviously, it's not the only thing, but I just found that funny.
See, it didn't hit me definitely like that. That's slanderous level of it right there. That's like, that's
what I thought. I'm going to say what I thought.
Oof. Yeah. No, it definitely didn't hit me like that. Any mom conversation above B versus S level is going to hit me. And it definitely hit me, like the whole, everything they were talking about, especially like I said, that was one of the scenes that I rewatched a lot. And it really started to hit me the more it went on and the more I watched it, because Frigga tells Loki that he can be anything, and that one relates to my mom, and I'm sure a lot of people's moms out there. And Loki never gets that in his whole life. Yes. His dad, as we've seen already in the series, tells him, "You're good enough to be king, but it ain't happening, bruh." Straight up. Like, from the gate, that is never going down. While his mom is like, you could be anything. And then he's also seen, this Loki right here, seeing that the actions that he would have taken were going to lead to his mother's death. So he's got that guilt on his head, right?
Yep.
So hearing that she doesn't know her mom and, Sylvie being envious of that relationship. Because that's like the one time we see where she doesn't crack on him, doesn't make some type of joke afterwards. So she's really like, damn, I wish I had that in my life. All I have is these memories, wisp of memories, which once again goes back to maybe she was mind wiped or something, because it seems like she has a problem with memory in general.
Problem with memory, she's controlling memories. As we learn about her enchantment, she uses for people with stronger minds anyway, she uses their memories in order to get what she wants from them. And within their interactions, and that's great, that's the very poignant what you said, Ben, about how much Frigga's influence led to how Loki is who he is now and how he behaves.
And also to how Sylvie behaves. Because like I said, that might be why she goes so hard in the paint now. Because Sylvie ain't had that motherly influence on her. Like, if we see everybody else tells Loki, you ain't ish. And so imagine if he didn't have Frigga around. What kind of dirt dog would he be?
This is true. He's already a dirt dog, but what kind of dirt dog?
Already. He'd be a double dirt dog.
Yes, this is true.
Oh, shout out to Dirt Dog in LA. Oof.
Through these conversations, you see Sylvie and Loki basically learning about each other to better understand themselves. And that's what we mean about it's about us, my variant brother and sister, because it seems like all of this is all about Loki and what Loki as a variant, as a construct, as a thorn, as I mentioned in the side of the TV, what Loki represents. Because it seems like Loki is the one deciding factor that throws off TVA's plans.
So it's just like So basically, if we're going with our other theory that the TVA is basically Kang in disguise, is it just that Loki is constantly throwing off Kang's plans?
Potentially, and the other reason why I think this may be the case, because I feel like, and it's giving me offshoot of WandaVision vibes. I feel like the Lokis are the stronger variants that can actually control realities or manipulate realities. Let me say it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Just like how we see with Sylvie and her essentially mind-altering powers, like she's using people's own memories, but using them to believe that they're in places that they're not, and that they're with people that they trust. Just like when she did with C20 when she was in the restaurant. And it was like, oh, we're best friends. And at first it worked. But then as soon as she started talking about the TVA, it started breaking down a little bit. And then like just even within Loki, or this version of Loki himself, like you just see him doing things that it's... First of all, just his idea of, and I know he gives it a different name, but illusion. Like we call it illusion. He called it, what did he call it? Duplication casting or whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to call it, bro. The fact is that you are showing a manipulation of reality. And I think that, not to say that they're the only beings with this power, it just seems like that tenacity of that type of person, of that type of being, the tenacity of Loki, the audacity of Loki, the guile and cunning of Loki mixed with those powers is what is the issue.
Well, that goes to another one of our theories, and something we talked about, the Agent of Asgard series from Al Ewing, where he takes Loki and transforms him from the god of lies into the god of stories. Because the god of stories, and Al Ewing also points out in the series how a lie is just a story. You know, it's a tale you're telling, you know, that's not truth. That's not reality. So, same with any story. You know, it's a tale you're telling that's not truth. It's not reality. So by telling these stories, by telling these lies, Loki is able to alter reality.
Exactly.
And so that is what we're seeing in this series in, you know, different ways that the MCU usually does it.
Yeah.
But there's also this theory going around on the internet about how this episode, a lot of it might be fraudulent. You know, like, is Sylvie controlling Loki through a lot of this episode? Is he actually under enchantment and doesn't realize it?
Did enchantment? I mean, as far as we know, the enchantment didn't work. Like her powers, when she put her hand to his temple, his neck, her powers flickered like they did when she was in TVA.
Yeah, and straight buzzed out too, like it was like a battery dying. So I disagree with that. Now, there's another idea that Loki, when he shows her the smash temp pad, that's an illusion.
I think that's Cap.
Okay.
Loki, I do think that's Cap that the temp pad smashed.
Yes.
Loki, the man's is a big capper. Like that's what he does.
Yeah.
And he does things, and whether we see the reasoning behind it doesn't matter. Even though he's so arrogant when he says it's true, he's always thinking several steps ahead. Even when in the midst of certain doom, he's still thinking ahead of the plan. And the stuff that you would be like, why would you present a broken temp pad? There could be a reason behind that. And like, as much as I love Loki as a character, I still don't trust him fully. So I think that is just another one of his illusions.
Yep. And the idea that Loki is holding on to a time stone in this episode that he snatched out of the drawer, out of
I don't think he is, because we saw and heard him drop it back into the drawer. So I don't think he has a time stone. And also, how is that to say that time stone even works in that time period they're in? Because remember, all the stones only work in the timelines that they belong to. How would he have known which stone belonged to that timeline ahead of time?
Facts. That's also a comic book theory, so that might not apply to the MCU. And this concept of timelines, as we've been discussing on Views, is kind of still shaky. You know, like who knows what is truth and what isn't. So, we do see Loki using green magic in this episode. You know,
but that's what I had said in an early episode. But you and I talked through that. I had already said that does his powers contain some form of time because of the color? But then also we've known throughout his history, at least in the MCU, the color has always just been green, just to signify it's his persona. That's his persona color. So is it because his powers of the time stone? I mean, that's literally something I brought up, and I was told, nah, probably not.
I don't know.
Now it's coming back up again. And the other reason why I bring it up again is because in the Shrew sequence, when that tower is falling and he stands in front of it and reverses it. It's once again, it's not like he just stopped it from falling. He reversed it in time. Like the smoke went back to where it was rewinding, which is what put me back to the path of, are y'all sure that at least this variant's powers aren't born somewhat of the time stone?
It's debatable, and I'm not even sure if his magic was it always colored green? I myself,
as far as I know, it was green.
Because it seems like in this episode they were like really making an emphasis that this man is now using the green magic. You know,
I did see. I was looking at some old clips from like Dark World, and it was green then. So
okay, well there you go. Yeah, that's pretty old.
Yeah.
So I don't, and that whole thing, like we see him in the other episode when he's battling Sylvie's, different person she's inhabiting. We see, and that's another question. Like even in those sequences when Sylvie is in people, we see her also outside of people at certain points.
Yeah, it's like a piece of her.
Yeah, it's taking
mind
over
is controlling him.
Okay.
But it's similar like the Dr. Manhattan or even Vision, how they can essentially split themselves.
Yep. But in that fight, we see Loki grab the weight, using some form of like what appears to be telekinesis. Telekinesis.
He grabbed the Roomba. He uses telekinesis to grab a Roomba.
Oh, yeah. I didn't know. I thought it was one of them round weights.
It was literally a Roomba because they were in a vacuum aisle.
Nice. All right. So, yeah. Who knows what Loki's powers are right now, what his true power set is, how much of this episode, like I say, is reality. I don't know, because a lot of this episode just felt so weird. Like you talked about, like I've been comparing it to Final Fantasy Remake because I was, recently rocking that, and there's a whole train sequence. There's a whole sequence when the city falls.
Well, let's go into that because that's actually the second theme of the fantasy and pretending. And
there we go.
That was, and I will say that after the third watch, I was just like, okay, that's another cool aspect I appreciated. And yes, there were like super Final Fantasy RPG-like elements in here.
Yes. And I wasn't sure if it was just me because I just recently rocked Final Fantasy, but that's all I was thinking because there's a famous train sequence in Final Fantasy.
Yes, there's always that train sequence, yes.
Yeah, and then there's the famous, city falling, and that just felt like the art.
That's damn near every Final Fantasy game.
God damn,
it really is. That's just how it is. It's always a catastrophe of a world annihilation catastrophe.
Wow, man.
That's the point of Final Fantasy. It's the Final Fantasy.
And this is my first time I've ever played a Final Fantasy, dog. Like I'd never put two and two together why it was Final Fantasy. That's hilarious. Yeah, so that was my take from it. It just felt weird, like this whole rich train and the poor people and we can't get on the train. Then they get thrown off the train, throw Loki from the train and shit. And then they walk to the city, like.
For me, like within that vein of Final Fantasy, this episode felt like a series of side quests.
Mm-hmm.
And it felt very like we're talking to all the NPCs of the Loki series as opposed to the main characters of the Loki series. Non-player characters for those who aren't gamers. That's what an NPC stands for.
Oh, yeah.
Basically the computer players that aren't real people.
Yeah, so I know that was the aesthetic, but the whole rich and po, like you texted me the Casino Side Planet story. Shout out to Return of the Jedi. Like, not Return of the Jedi. The Last Jedi.
This was not my favorite episode because I felt like there were a couple pieces of information that were absolutely prevalent, but I didn't think it required all this side quest running around to get to those pieces.
Yes.
It just could have been said in like 2 lines somewhere else. And I was missing the other characters. Like halfway through, I was like, well, what about Mobius, bro? Like, where's his jet skis? Like, I was thinking of that and perhaps it. But still using that point you're mentioning about Final Fantasy, the aesthetic was really cool. Mm-hmm. From the clothing, the styling, you mentioned the train, the city itself, the guards.
Yeah.
I got Majora's Mask tees. Shout out to Beans. I see you, Beans. For those who haven't played Majora's Mask, that's a Zelda game where the world is going to end in 3 days. Like when a moon with this like wild ass face is going to crash into it. The name of the planet it's going to crash into is called Terminus. So again, another planet with or moon or planetary body with this somber ass name, Terminus, Lamentis. Yeah.
I got major vibes. We talked about this earlier last week. I think Jonathan Hickman's Secret Wars run where the Avengers, which might be, foreshadowing in a way where the Avengers and everybody are trying to stop these planets from crashing into each other, like different realities, different timelines of Earth crashing into each other. So seeing this big ass planet crashing into this other planet, and just those asteroid drops, like when they were walking through and there's this giant one just slowly floating into the ground in the background. That was, some beautiful work.
Beautiful visual work. It's just that some of the feeling of the episode was off for me. That's all.
Yeah,
and,
definitely.
And of course, again, the lament of it, the somber tone of it, and the fact that it just ended, right? Like they got to the end, the arc got destroyed, and Sylvie was like, "Well," turned around and walked the fuck out. And I got, like, from her characterization, right? That would be how she reacted, right? Like for 4, when she thought, she was like, when she saw that the thing got broken, the tempad, she was like, "You killed us." Like, she's very negative anyway, right? She's very on that plane of things, and then to see like their one way out, which again, I'm not sure how they were supposed to do all that. And if they needed to even do all that, like, they couldn't have got power from that gun or that thing that woman homesteader was using. Like, that wasn't enough power. Like,
no.
How exactly was it supposed to work?
That's what I mean. It all seems like you said, kind of side quests. I got like the feeling, especially the ending. We talked about this last week, where I thought it felt like Cowboy Bebop. This really felt like an episode of Cowboy Bebop to me. Because that's my feeling after every episode of Cowboy Bebop. I'm like,
okay.
Man, this was a lot of nothing. Like, this don't really like add up to anything. And they usually take
the journey,
L's.
Ben. I mean, it's not about
I know,
the one
and
episode,
I get that. And I enjoy
journey.
Cowboy Bebop for that. Don't, once again, don't hate me. Because I enjoy Cowboy Bebop. I just don't think it's this, fantastical thing that everybody else thinks it is. But
and that's fair.
Yeah, at the same time, even on the episodes where, they accomplish something in Cowboy Bebop, it's like there's L's, and it's always this down feeling. Like, well, what's my man Spike? Because he stay taking
Spike
L's
Spiegel.
against who's his like arch enemy, the nemesis dude.
I forgot his name, but yeah, man.
Yeah, but every time they run into each other, it's an L for Spike, and then that'll be the end of the episode. Like Spike takes the L. See you next time, cowboy. And that's how this one felt. Like Loki takes the L.
Oh, vicious versus vicious.
Vicious.
Yeah.
Yes, vicious. I mean, come on.
Take an L. See you later, cow.
That's how it always feels, And that's how this one felt. Like, arc explodes. See you later, cowboy.
I hear you. I understand.
That's exactly how this one felt to me.
I understand. And again, that probably contributed to my reaction at the end, like, of okay.
Yeah, me too. Because I was like, oh man, just like cowboy. That's exactly how I feel. I'm like, oh, okay,
right. But as you said, there are at least 3 more episodes, so we know that can't be the end.
I never finished Cowboy Bebop either because of that. Like, I was like, all right.
Well, we're gonna continue on to the next theme, which is love is dot,
is
dot,
blind.
dot. What is love then? I mean, what that question has been generally proposed by both Sylvie and Loki, and they have this. Again, like I said, I'm not quite sure where this conversation came from, but they have this conversation about love. Like, I know where it came from literally, but I mean, like, just as far as how it fit within everything. But they have several, Loki and Sylvie, when they have these chats, they have several definitions of what love is. Mm-hmm. One of the first things they say is that Sylvie says, love is hate. She mentions, again, when they encounter that widowed homesteader that shot them with that gun, with the energy pulse, whatever that was. Like, they were talking about her husband, and Sylvie was talking about how she loved her. She loved him, and Loki's like, nah, basically the way that they were interacting, the fact that Loki tried to act like he was the husband and like he was too nice about it, and the woman was like, my husband was never that nice in 30 years. So Sylvie's like, well, maybe love is hate. And that makes sense in some people's eyes, right? It's the antithesis of itself. Sometimes you love someone so much that you hate them. People love to hate watch stuff. That tracks sometimes. What do you think, Ben?
I mean, the love, there's a thin line between love and hate thing always, it seems to be that old school saying that I mean, it definitely works in certain cases because you've seen people, go from loving someone to hating them. I
And
mean,
vice versa.
I think we have pretty much. I think we've all been through those situations in life. So there's that, and I don't know that. Like you said, their whole conversation felt like two people who, just spitting a bunch of bullshit. Honestly, but especially when it got to the love part.
It
was just like,
I'm like, was this like a mind game? And then they also go on to say that love is mischief.
Yep.
And we see just how like both Loki and Sylvie really revel in the mischief part of things. They love that. That is part of their being. And Loki, he's used mischief for his advantage. He even within this whole trick with the homesteader stuff when he did the illusion like he was the husband.
Mm-hmm.
That was part of mischief.
Yep.
Then Loki gets toasted, slizzard, lit, and mentions this. He does this like soliloquy about love is a dagger. It's a weapon to be wielded. And a lot of people have that thought too about love, right? Like it's really dangerous and people use it against people as a weapon.
Well, there's something really interesting about this whole thing, right? Because I was reading some stuff about this and how the idea of love as we know it today is something that's been popularized and modernized and sold to us basically because that was just not the case for most of human civilization. People didn't think of it. People actually looked at love as something dangerous, like, a dagger and like foolish because it just wasn't a thing. One, people didn't live that long, so people weren't thinking, oh, okay, I can grow old with this person because people were dying at 30, getting murdered off, all kind of things like that. Yeah, so there's none of that, for most of human civilization. And a lot of times it was just, marriage was always a contract between different families so that something could happen and their families would grow. It was never like, oh, let me fall in love with this person. That's something that came up in like the 1900s even. It's a very recent concept. And even then, back in the 1950s, people were getting married super young and all that. It was their parents were marrying them off. That, it's even less than that where it really became like, oh, I got to find the love of my life, and all this type of thing. Like, and so there is that idea. And it's like, the way that Loki talks about it, I disagree with, because I'm also the person who feels that the universe is based on love, and like that everything moves through love, basically. And I hate when people are like, oh, I can't, show any emotion or that type of stuff, or it's a weapon. And that's why I don't know. I just felt like their whole convo just felt like the most important part of it and the most poignant part for me was when Sylvie was talking about how that woman the homesteader did love her husband.
Right.
Even though she shot Loki, because that was just like, she knows it wasn't her husband. Her husband been gone.
She knows him very well.
Yeah, but she still loves him. And that's, the part that I really thought was dope. I mean, it's fucked up for her, but at the same time, who knows what their relationship was,
Mm-hmm.
But it was dope that they showed that love isn't just this simple thing where people are trying to be all enamored with each other all the time, because that's definitely not reality.
Yeah.
Love of your life or not.
And speaking of things not being reality, the other definition is that love isn't real. And that all these definitions are ultimately bullshit because they don't make sense to someone or it doesn't apply to a lot of people.
Well, there's always the idea like that love is just a bunch of chemical reactions, and all that type of stuff where basically not much more than animals going off pheromones and hormones. So,
Do you believe in love, Ben? I mean?
Yeah, most definitely.
I think love is real.
Yeah, I definitely think it is. But I also think that the way that it's sold to you and taught to you is a messed up way to look at it. I think this idea of, what's the word? Love as a contract is a problem. Where like you have to do certain things in order for my love to exist,
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Or you can't do certain things or my love stops existing.
Conditional love is what you're talking about.
Yeah. That's a problem because that most people live in a conditional love. We live in a conditional love society. If you don't do something for me, I don't love you. And so that's something I disagree with. And like I said, just the whole concept of diamond rings, all this other nonsense, that's like, come on.
Lamentis.
Yeah, that's all nonsense. But I do have a question.
Yes.
It ain't really loving. For Sylvie, it's all she had. Sylvie mentions that she did maintain a long-term relationship with a postman jumping from apocalypse to apocalypse.
Mm-hmm.
Who is Sylvie smashing Stan Lee?
I did look this up. This could really just be a throwaway line. We could be reaching, could be just an ode to Stan Lee, but she mentions she has a relationship with a postman across time. And when you do a little bit of research about a postman in MCU, that could be your Easter egg reference to Willie Lumpkin, who is played by Stan Lee, first in the Fantastic Four film back in 2005. Yep. And then he replayed the character again in a later film. And that's an actual character in the comics. And the character is kind of like the side character that gets looped into all of the foolishness that happens with the Avengers, with the Fantastic Four. Like, he gets kidnapped a few times. I believe there's some stories where he goes through time itself. And it could track.
Willie Lumpkin is the Fantastic Four's postman. Like, he straight up shows up mainly in their comic book. He's always delivering back when they live at the Baxter building. And at one point, he gets mind controlled by Dr. Doom and uses Immortus's time machine. Immortus is another, you might want to say, variant of Kang. So it all relates. Before I even thought about Willie Lumpkin, because I remember him from the comics back in the day, I immediately thought of Stan Lee because Stan Lee plays a postman in one of his bonus credit scenes when he shows up to deliver a package to Tony Stank.
Yes, I remember.
Yep. And so that was my immediate jump. I was like, oh, she's smashing Stan. And that also made sense because Stan has been shown to be one of the Watchers in the MCU. Shout out to Views from the 616 and the Black Watcher, Blatcher. But he's been shown to be one of those in another one of the post-credit scenes where he was sitting with a bunch of Watchers telling them about, I think he's actually telling them about delivering mail as Tony Stank, to Tony Stank, in that scene. No, he's mentioning like one of his other post-credit scenes. Right. I can't remember which one exactly, but I want to say it was that one.
But he absolutely. And so that could be a pure reference. So just sharing that with everybody.
Yeah, no, definitely. I'm going, that's canon for me, baby. Sylvie smashing Stan.
Right. And one of the last themes we have is Loki's define themselves. Sylvie, when they're walking, as you said, doing a lot of walking this episode, but when they're walking, Sylvie asks, what makes a Loki? And Loki answers independence, authority, style, and then also based on his ways on the train, hedonistic. And you see that, at least you can't tell with the other variants. We don't meet those other variants we see in that hologram, but you just see them. But just based on what we see, it seems to all make sense, right? At least looking at Loki and Sylvie, like they both have fierce level of independence, fierce level of personal authority and style, of course. Sylvie mentions how, she's hedonistic too, but not at the detriment of the plan, of the mission. Like, there's different levels of how they conduct themselves. Also, the homesteader woman on Lamentis, she calls Loki and Sylvie demons. And as we know, just of the story of Loki as the Norse god and all that stuff, he's also considered a demon lots of times. And then also just talking about the definition of what makes a Loki. Like, they are undefined. And that goes back to what I've said earlier this episode, just about why Loki is a problem for the TVA, because he is an undefined variable in an equation. He is gender fluid. And when I say he, I'm talking about this version of Loki. He's gender fluid. This one, at least in this episode, he confirms that he's bisexual. He doesn't fit within the constructs of one thing or the other. And also even Sylvie, like, even though she's technically a Loki variant, she is very adamant that she's not called Loki nor a variant of Loki. She insists that she's known by her alias of Sylvie. So they are always seems to be the outlier in that perfect equation, that perfect balanced equation of the sacred timeline. So I think that's why the TVA has a big problem with them. If they haven't really said it as much, I think so.
I want to make it clear it's not because they are bisexual or anything that the TVA would have a problem with them.
No, and that's not what I said. Yeah. Thanks, but no, that's not what I said at all. I just said that's the fact that they don't fit into a category whatsoever.
Yeah, but I think it has, like, the fact that they, are so fiercely independent and want to break things down. But now there's something else right there with you, something you did say though, right? About how what makes a Loki. Like, not what makes Loki or not what makes you a Loki, what makes a Loki?
What makes a Loki, right?
Like, that's a very important choice of words right there. So is she saying that she is not a Loki? Is she saying like that? It's just also like a weird phrasing right there that kind of threw me off. Like, where is it like, are they saying Loki? Like, is Loki a type? You know, is Loki a thing you inhabit?
Versus a name, is it more so a type? Like, could anyone be a Loki?
Mm-hmm. Is it a title? You know, is it like something that's thrust upon you? Because that goes back to, once again, the comic books we were talking about, where Loki is trying to outlive this idea, especially the new kid Loki that's born. He doesn't want to be like the old Loki who's like always the villain. You know, he's like, I got to outlive that. I got to tell enough stories of my own where people know me as this mischievous dude, whatever, but not the villain. It don't work out. He ends up being the the villain, because that is just what he is at that time, at least, destined to do. And as we've talked about, because the audience really won't allow a change, especially in comic books. You know, they won't allow you to change, because comic books have to be a static medium where any new reader can instantly jump on. And at that time, Loki was always known as the villain. It wasn't until the MCU came along where we got this more anti-hero version of Loki, which led to stories like Agent of Asgard, etc.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was just one of them questions. Like, you know, what I mean, I don't know. Like, I mean, we obviously know the name Sylvie comes from the Enchantress in Marvel Universe, a version of the Enchantress. And so we see that this Sylvie Loki is, you know, a bit of an enchantress.
She likes to enchant, but I just think it's just a riff of a character. Like, they put two characterizations of Lady Loki and Enchantress together and came up with Sylvie. Yeah.
Because the Lady Loki is more just, you know, Loki flipping back and forth. It's not like there's another character named Lady Loki. That's just Loki flipping form.
Oh, that's just Loki presenting as a woman.
Oh, yeah. There's no other Lady Loki. And it's
it's not an actual another physical person. It's just Loki in a different presentation. Okay.
No, at one point he inhabits Sif's body and, you know, is Lady, you know, because he's in Sif's body. So but whenever you see him flipping back and forth, like at one point he's like, oh yeah, I am man and woman. In like 3 panels, he goes from man to woman to, like, I want to say it's a deer Loki. It's some weird shit, you know.
I mean, he's all and he's nothing at the same. Like what do you say? If you're showing a cat, you're alive and dead at the same time. Like you're everything.
Yeah,
he's everything, and that's what I'm just saying. It's just something about him, a Loki. Like if you look at a perfectly balanced equation, like we talk about Thanos. He's that one variable that's just like fucks up that equation.
Yeah. But which goes back to the other thing. Thanos seems to be a dude who is fucking up the equations all over the place, and the TVA just seems to ignore it.
We already know that these niggas is lying, okay? And we're gonna go into that in just a minute.
One last thing on that, though, because I did mention this before, is that, you know, Sylvie with her broken horns headdress seems to be modeled after Agent of Asgard Loki, who is a Loki who's further along in their development. But while this Sylvie, while Soki over here,
Soki, that would be their ship name if they were together. Soki,
yeah, Soki, yeah.
I rescind my invitation.
She used to say that shit, didn't she? Oh yeah, that's when Bill went flying through the house.
Yes. Bill Compton.
He was like, oh.
That's True Blood reference, y'all. We'll talk about True Blood. Continue.
Yeah. Anyway, it does beg the question that what is going on with her, because she don't seem to have the plans. She does seem to have been around a lot longer than our Loki. You know, she seems to be world weary and all that stuff, but she don't seem to have no real plan. And you would think if you've been through it longer and stuff, you would have a plan.
Listen. As we continue to talk about Sylvie, let's just get more into these characterizations. Mm-hmm. This episode was primarily just Loki and Sylvie. We did get a little bit of Ravonna Renslayer and some of the Minutemen, but generally just these two. What we've learned about Sylvie is she got hands, and I think she might be a better hand-to-hand fighter than Loki. She might be a little more crisp than him when it comes to melee.
She got, bigger sword energy than him.
Oh, that too. She like Loki was adopted, but unlike him, she knew from the get-go, and also unlike him, she barely has memory of her mother. Her mother could be anybody at this point. We know for her, she expresses or explains to Loki how her enchantment power, her magic works. She has to make physical contact in order to grab hold of the person's mind. If it's a weak mind, she just do it by brute force.
What?
If it's a stronger mind, she has to create a fantasy from their memories.
Go back to that real quick, though. You think that her mom isn't someone else? I mean, isn't Frigga?
It may be someone. It could be anybody. I don't think like variants are mirror images. Like it's the Frigga of that world. Like it could just be anybody completely different.
Well, she did say she was adopted and she was told.
She was told, right? So,
yeah.
So who told her? Like
I don't know. I still think she's Asgardian. Well, no, because there's the other thing, right? When Loki was singing to her in Asgardian, she looked mad
she didn't know what was going on.
She looked like she was like, man, she looked like me when I'm in Ethiopia and everybody starts talking on my heart to me.
She didn't seem like she, and that could, again, she could be reacting to just the fact that he was blowing cover, everything. But it also didn't seem like she recognized the language either.
No, not a word.
Yeah, I don't know. Sylvie expressed that she spent her entire life. Is
Sylvie a poser?
She might be. she might be.
I'm getting major poser vibes.
These Lokis are known for mischief and making shit up. It's like, are you telling a story? As you say, what is happening? So she expresses that she spent her entire life running from the TVA, and her plan to take them down has been years in the making.
Not much of one, though. It is a plan of like, fuck it.
You didn't know your powers wouldn't work in TVA. Whatever.
Yeah, and also it's like, I mean, she keeps flipping the plan because her plan was not run into other Loki. And also, like this is one major problem I have with this episode, and I'm sure it's going to be resolved in like the first 10 seconds of next week, is what the hell happened with all of those things that she dropped, all the reset charges. Like, we saw
happened?
Nothing. Like we saw nothing. And like I say, I'm already calling it. The next episode is going to open with pure chaos. And I think 4 and 5 are just to be moving. Because
what do we know about the research charges? They essentially erase, well, as far as I understood, they erase what's not supposed to be there.
But what happens when you put them into a space where things are supposed to be there?
To be there, right. But something had to happen because we saw branches pop out the sacred timeline.
Well, like my theory was that she dropped it in the, like, because we saw one drop into nowhere, right? So what if she dropped it into nowhere and erased the Guardians of the Galaxy?
Jesus.
Yeah, it's a bad idea.
It's a bad look, so.
So I think the next episode is going to open with pure chaos. But that was one of my problems with this episode because I wanted to see that. And it's like, that's part of her big plan. But then that she did not expect to run into this other Loki in this mall that she was hiding out in and expect to run with him into the TVA after she dropped the plan. Maybe that was always her plan. Like, I'm going to drop these charges, fuck everybody up, and I'm going to go kill, Kang.
That's as far as I know, that was her plan.
And then Loki's just there along the way. Like, F it, I got to deal with this moron while I do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Loki and Sylvie go in on each other, calling each other magicians. And it's so funny that they use the term magicians as a what's the word? Like, when you just calling people names. Like a pejorative, right? Like, oh, you're just a magician. So, like, and again, it goes back to what I said earlier about that parallel with Wanda and reality altering abilities and things like that. Like, some people could look at Wanda and be like we even saw the episode when they did that magician show. Like, you're nothing more than a magician. People who have these powers are when you're trying to talk down on them anyway, you call them a magician. So,
well, it's the difference also, as Doctor Strange shown, between the sorcerer and a magician.
Yes.
Y'all are clowns. I'm the real thing.
Y'all are clowns.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Ben, you also mentioned here, like, again, how much of this episode is real? That question just keeps coming up. Who is lying to whom? I still, as I said earlier, do believe that Loki is lying about the smashed TemPad. People could ask, well, what would be his gain by imagining that the TemPad got destroyed? I don't know, girl. I just think Mans is lying.
Yeah, see, the more I think about it, I don't think he's lying there because that's the problem. Like, what is the gain? And the solution that I see to their plight right now is that Mobius shows up or Ravonna shows up.
Someone's going to show up and pull him out.
Yeah, because
Easy.
Mobius knows that he hides that the variant hides
in catastrophes.
Yeah, he has to go through and do some research because there's 1,000 of them. and he got this other mess to deal with at the same time.
Wouldn't it be logged? Wouldn't it be in the 10-pad logs of
that
last
was my
known
thought.
location?
Like if Miss Minutes would know in general,
Miss Minutes
right?
would know. I'm sure there's a system log that shows every location that a 10-pad is activated in. And they can say, well, what was the last known location? Maybe they got some GPS shit.
Yeah.
So, like you said, even if Loki isn't lying, like you said, it's very easy for them to find.
But
what did Mobius say? Mobius was like, even remember episode back, Mobius said to Loki, even if you run or do whatever, we're gonna find you.
Facts. Boom. There it is. And I just think it takes time because of the bureaucracy of the TVA, plus all the other nonsense they're dealing with right now. Right. So it takes an episode.
And where is Mobius during all of this chaos?
Well, we'll find out in the next episode.
Right. So,
but he's dealing with the chaos. That's, I mean, he's one of the prime analysts. Like, remember, he sees what's his name disappear and all the charges go. So he's like, fuck, I got to go, deal with this right now. That's what he's dealing with. Yeah.
True. Yeah. All right. The TVA, big fucking cappers. Okay. We learned that because we find out from Sylvie that as the TVA claimed that everyone there were created by the Timekeepers, it's actually revealed that they are just, all those people are just variants that were taken from wherever timeline they were in and their minds scrambled. So how many variants of each other are working in the TVA? And as I had kept asking, is Mobius his own variant and he don't even know it? Like what's really going on there?
Well, when you say is he their own variant and they don't know it,
the reason why is because, like I said, how just like and you could just say he's just been to Ravana's office a lot, but the fact that there was kept being multiple drink rings of him constantly. Say he's constantly in trouble, constantly in the office having drinks with her. Is it him or is it another variant of him that's coming to the office? It's multiple versions of him that's talking to Ravana.
I would definitely go with that, and that would pay tribute to the comments where there are multiple Mark Grunwald Mobiuses running around.
Right.
And that would be great to see Owen Wilson play against himself once he runs into these other variants of himself.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And Ravana can know the truth because we know she's capping too.
Yeah.
But
capping for Kang.
Capping for Kang. That should be your new AKA. Who is really in charge of the TVA? Is it Miss Minutes?
No, it's Kang.
It's Kang.
And at this point, that's something I guess, like I said, it's like, the obvious hints of Kang are getting so ridiculous that I don't think it's Kang anymore.
Is Kang going to be the new Mephisto? Like, I'm sure it's Kang. Like, is that going to be the new thing? And it's like, it's not him?
Yeah, but it's like the Mephisto hints were more like people reach it. It's like they are showing that wood face of, looking like Jonathan Majors every chance they get.
Over and over again.
I mean, it's in the credits. Right before they go for the golden elevator, it's right there again. It's the only one they show. And in the credits, it's the only one they show. So it's like, it's not. It can't be now. I do not believe Jonathan Majors is going to be in this series. I'm calling
when C20 was under the control of Sylvie and she told Sylvie where to find the Timekeepers, she said, get to that golden elevator. Mm-hmm. I do know, like, in the credits, like there's that scene with the golden elevator. There's a finger, someone's finger presses the button 2W1, and presumably that's some random floor, right? Mm-hmm. And then in the elevator console, there's a series of alphanumeric characters that appear, and then one more appears before it says access denied. The code is 1EJ. So I'm like, is that the Timekeeper's floor? Is that why it's access denied? What does that stand for? Who knows? It's just something I picked up.
Don't know. Also, little note, you know that when he wrote Love is Hate, he actually wrote it on the piece of paper. You see it for 1 split second.
Loki, when he was writing with his little feathered pen.
You actually see it on that piece of paper. Yeah,
wow.
Little details matter.
Yeah.
Yep. 1EJ. That sounds like a good drink. Had the E and J.
Oh my gosh.
Oh man.
Let's talk a little bit
E and J.
about Loki I have to learn how to pronounce this new last name. Laufsen. Yep, that's because I just had to think about how Ravana yelled at him. Laufsen.
Lafayson. Laufey. I always thought it was Laufey, but
I just say how Ravana says it. So
Laufsen.
I mentioned earlier we get a confirmation that Loki is bisexual. Because when Sylvie asked, maybe did you have a prince or princess in your life, and he says he's had a bit of both. I asked the question again about this Loki's abilities. Does he have the ability to reverse time, and what exactly was that he did when he put that building back up to where it was. Like it's different from like example when he walked into Rock's cart and he just used his magic to be dry. That's just a change of what you see. He put the building back to where it was a few seconds ago in the same direction of where it came. So it looked like a different type of magic to me.
Also, Sylvie was quite unfazed by it too. You know, she was like, "Oh yeah, you can do that."
Well, what else she's gonna be fazed by? The whole place was coming crumbling down. I think that's the last of her worries.
Still, but she, you know, there was no reaction. She like expected him to do it.
Well, who knows? And that's the thing. There's so many things about both of them we still don't know, like including their abilities and things like that. And let's see what else. This Loki seems to have more of a soft spot or compassion that he lets on. And you get to see more progression of him as a character. And it's more of his explanation that no one's entirely good or bad, just like when he was talking to Mobius. You see that when they first land on Lamentis 1 and they're like running from the meteors at first, and he saves Sylvie from getting hit by one of the meteors. And I saw that action out of true care, not just because he felt like he needed Sylvie. And even when they ended up in the next space where Sylvie was like, "Oh, you just saved me because you needed me," and if you watch that closely, he just says, "Yeah, that too." He saved her because he wanted to save her out of care, not just because he felt like he needed her.
I wonder. I definitely see that in the city when the city is crumbling. It seems like at one point this little girl runs off from her mom or someone, and Loki attempts to chase after her.
I saw that. I just thought I saw him watching. I don't think he tried to chase after her.
I thought he was trying to help. You know, I was going with that Loki was trying to help. It doesn't seem like he managed to do it, but everything goes bad.
I'm not sure about that, but he was truly trying to help Sylvie. It wasn't just because he needed her.
I don't know about that. I do say that in their fight in the beginning, they're not trying to kill each other, like as much as they, you know, act like they are before Ravonna shows up. But I did feel more of the Loki was like, "I need this woman right now. You know, I'm trapped on an alien planet."
Watch that scene again when they first run across when she's like, "You idiot, we're in Lamentis," and they run across the field and go into the factory or whatever that is. Yeah. Watch that interaction again when they speak. Because she's just like, "Oh, you just saved me because you needed me." And he's just like, yeah, that too. And it's like something's different there. So I would say watch that. And if you still feel the same way, cool. But I think he's more compassionate. And perhaps it's also part of that character of Loki. Like you even seen in her that there are hints of compassion within the character. Like even though, like you said, they're dirty dogs and they're these tricksters and they this and then that, they still have some form of compassion within them.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see that. I mean, I definitely saw it when they started talking about the moms. But and I don't feel like this Loki is so evil where he's just gonna let somebody die in front of him either at this point, because this Loki, like we say, saw the whole "this is your life" of himself, and he realized that way he was doing was not working. Right,
but it's like he has to come to Jesus moment, right? Because before he was just killing 80 niggas in a day, right?
Yeah, that's what I mean. I think his come to Jesus moment was watching "This Is Your Life." Like, right. You know, that's a come to Jesus moment for anyone who gets that chance.
And finally, in the characterizations, the characters, we have Hunter C or Minuteman. Or actually, she's a hunter because she's in charge. So Commander C-20. It's revealed by Sylvie that she's actually a human from Earth, a variant that was then put into service at the TVA. And this now makes sense when she was in Rock's cart, repeating that she wanted to go home. She was not talking about the TVA. She was talking about Earth. The fact that she said it was real. She was probably referring to her memories from, as we now know, hundreds of years ago.
Mm-hmm. Well, okay, that's the thing. Her memories are from hundreds of years ago, but she seems to be from an Earth from a recent time. So it's just that she's been working at the TVA for hundreds of years. And that the TVA exists out of time, like we said before.
Yes.
So it's not that, you know, she's from some hundreds of years past. Obviously not. She's from somewhere where margaritas is popping.
Right.
Yeah. So she might be from,
she's from 2021 to me.
Yeah. But still had
or 2023, whatever
year they are. I think 2026 is 5 years. I can't remember. Whatever they're in right now. So, so she just, you know, might be from right now and have been hundreds of years in the TVA, which is some wild effed up shit. Because, you know, like, what if she just went missing and people are like, "Oh my God, where's Kara?" You know, I don't know. And then, you know, she shows up a few days later and it's like, "Oh, I've been gone for hundreds of years." Like,
now what about also B-15, Mumi Masaku's character? Like, when she got taken. So, for example, when she got mind melted, I guess I don't know what you want to call it, with Sylvie, and she was under control for a minute, and then when she woke up, obviously, yeah, she's disoriented. But now that we have this information, it's like, was she? Now we have the information of how enchantment works.
Mm-hmm.
Do we think B-15 saw like her previous life, and that also lent to her disorientation?
Maybe a bit of it, and not nearly as much as C-20 did, because C-20 got that hardcore, like, what is the answer,
Yeah.
And B-20 just shot to quit possession, so it might be a different feeling to that whole, where she had to dig into those memories. Like she said, she was like, I had to go into those memories to get the answer I needed. So that really...
So C-20 definitely saw a previous life. B-15, maybe not.
Probably, it was like a bad dream, like, I was on the beach somewhere, and then, she wakes up in the mall again.
Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? Maybe she, was with some dude who was talking about monsters.
Monsters, Letty, monsters.
She wakes up like, what? Wait, what?
Could you imagine if she saw Kang, if Kang appeared?
But it was like monsters. No, like if she was dreaming about Lovecraft Country, and then she wakes up back in the mall like,
oh,
wait.
my Lord. All right, rounding out our review are the Easter eggs, inspiration, music, as well as information about the credits.
Mm-hmm.
That's first Easter egg, that photo that is on the desk that Loki sees in the homesteaders or the widow's house and her husband. It resembled to me that famous painting of American Gothic. That's actually a farmer and his daughter. The farmer's holding that pitchfork. It looks like the composition is pretty much the same, but except for I think the woman's holding something. When Sylvie and Loki get thrown off the train and the temp peg is broken, she screams to let off steam. Loki asks her if it made her feel better, and she's like, yeah, you should try it. Again, this episode had parallels to a lot of different movies, apparently. I saw with that particular screaming stuff, that was a parallel to when Loki was screaming in his cell in Dark World. There's parallels to potentially Inception when they're talking about dreams and realities within dreams. And as we say, not even knowing if this episode itself is a dream or what's going on or someone's being enchanted. Apparently, I did see online that there are some references to Alien. The fact that the moon is it's a mining moon, and there are two characters that are named after characters from Alien.
Yes. Oh, I forget. You've never probably seen Aliens. Oh.
I seen one.
Wait, which one you seen?
The one when they coming out the stomach. Is that all of them?
They come out. That's like saying I seen the Fast and Furious where they divide death.
I've seen enough to know what's going on.
That's like saying I've seen one of the Fast and Furious where they don't die.
Yeah,
all of them. No, in Aliens, I'm not gonna say the best. Alien and Aliens are both two classics. Alien is by Ridley Scott, and Aliens is by James Cameron. And so in Aliens, it's about the Marines going to the planet, the mining planet, and going to work. And so two of the Marines are Hicks and Hudson. I can't believe because I always know Hicks.
And there are two guards in this episode that are named.
They're the guards that
Hicks
one of them who she enchants. And I think it's probably she enchants Hudson because Hudson is played by the legendary, rest in peace, Bill Paxton. And he's a complete moron in Aliens, but he is one of the most classic characters and delivers so many classic lines. Like
it's the one when you said that the Marines go down to this planet. Is that when she's in the exosuit?
Yes, get away from her, you bitch. Yeah, and also when Ridley, the woman Sigourney, tells Hudson that Newt, the little girl, has survived for 3 weeks on this planet, and he says, 3 weeks? We're not gonna make it 3 hours. I mean, he has so many classic, terrible, and then Hicks is played by Michael Biehn, another classic actor who a lot of people know from Terminator and a lot of other James Cameron films. So shout out to Hicks and Hudson.
Okay, Respect. Cool. So that was definitely a shout out. And
hell yeah.
Also in the city of Sharu, that last city that's falling apart where the Ark is, that reminded me of Titanic. Reminded me of all the rich people being allowed to go into the lifeboats, and then all the poor people just let us on, and they're screaming let us in, and then of course on Titanic the people in charge is like, calm down, it'll be okay, knowing good and damn well them people gonna die on that ship.
Another James
and
Cameron. That's dope. Like
yeah.
that's 2 James Cameron shout outs in one episode. I wonder were there any others.
Yeah, potentially.
Yeah, I think about it.
In terms of music, we in the very beginning on the opening episode, we have "Demons" by Haley Kiyoko.
Mm-hmm.
We have, and I actually love that song. That song goes real hard.
And also, it's really dope how the lyrics coincide with what's going on because it's edited to show like the demons inside C20's heads are the Loki, et cetera, and it's like that line hits right on that.
The widow lady calling Loki and Sylvie demons, the whole thing.
Yep.
It's all there. And all of the music we're going to mention, like if you look at the lyrics, they are positioned to coincide with what's going on in the story. We have Deep Blue by Ladytron in the restaurant when Sylvie is in C20's head. We have Dark Moon playing by Bonnie Guitar at the end credits, sorry. And then there's actually an update to the credits where Loki and Sylvie appear in the photographs and the files. Like, always pay attention because they update these things slightly. Before it was just a picture of Loki, but now it's Sylvie and Loki, like black and white photos.
I saw someone make the most ridiculous reach with the coffee that's in the credits because it has like some numbers and letters on it, and they made a hardcore reach. I can't even remember what the reach was. It was so out of control.
Whatever.
Yeah, Hicks and Hudson. And also one other little Easter egg tribute to another film is Loki smashing his drink on the ground and saying, "Another!"
Yes.
Like Thor did in the first Thor movie. Yep. And that was a great... Tom Hiddleston did a great Chris Hemsworth impression right there.
Yeah.
Really great. Like,
he's just
so
an
good.
amazing actor for sure.
Yeah. I loved... the first time he sang, when I first watched it, I was like, this is whack. The third time, I was like, oh, man, I'm really feeling this song.
I liked him singing.
Yeah.
I liked him singing from the beginning. I've always liked that. Yeah.
Nah, I definitely felt it in the third time around.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, that is our review of episode 3 of Loki. I hope you all enjoyed it. And I know you did because you're still watching.
Yes.
As we say always every week, you can support us in many different ways and support the show. Support the people who are bringing this show together, who help to execute the visuals and the sound and the look, everything behind it. Thank you to our team. We love you so much. A few things you all can do to help us. First, you can go to tpublic.com/stores with an S/4allnerds, and you can get various beautiful designs on various beautiful pieces of merchandise. So you see here, I have the Inclusion is Revolution t-shirt. You can get this design on all sorts of things, including other t-shirts, masks. I think it's still good to wear a mask. Wear your mask. Phone cases, books, mugs, everything under the sun you could think of. We also have our Views from the 616 logo featuring that black watch that Ben-Amin mentioned earlier, as well as a variety of exclusive For All Nerds designs that only you can get by going to our TeePublic store. Again, tpublic.com/stores/forallnerds. You can also support us through our Patreon, patreon.com/forallnerds, where as long as you are on one of those tiers, whatever works for you, you get special privileges and surprises. Thank you to everyone who has been supporting us on there. We see y'all adding to the Patreon. We, oh my God, y'all don't understand how much we appreciate that, because this is what keeps us going. This is what helps, as I mentioned, keeps the whole shebang running, but also it helps us get more reach. It helps us get reach to other events, upcoming events that are we want to be at. Give us access and really it's just helpful to the overall mission of For All Nerds. Make sure you are following us on Twitch, twitch.tv/forallnerds. What's up to the Twitch fam? We love you. We love you discussing all your theories and doing the debates in the chat. Appreciate it. If you can, also subscribe to us. And also, sometimes you might get a free subscription. You just have to be in the chat. Sometimes we let off a few gifts. Gifts and donations be popping off in the Twitch chat, but you got to be in it to win it. And as usual, make sure you are subscribed to us on your favorite podcast platform. We're on generally everything. For All Nerds. That's how you get to listen to Views from the 616. What else, Ben-Amin?
I did just want to shout out to twitch.tv/forallnerds viewers and listeners, watchers, everyone who's out there in the chat. Hopefully right now, as you're watching, you see this very dope setup we got for Loki. I'm looking around
Hopefully
at
I'm
it right
pointing
now.
to the new setup and not the
Yeah,
old
hopefully
setup.
I'm pointing to the new setup and this don't make no sense right now. But if it does, hit that follow, hit that subscribe. You'll see some dope animations and all kind of stuff. You know, we got this popping for y'all, this whole look, all these things we are always trying to bring to step up the game, to bring you this content that you know and love. So thank you as always for all the support, all the love. Make sure you follow us on the Twitters at DJ Ben Amin. She's at Tatiana King, at For All Nerds, at Views from 616. That's Views from 616. The blackest Marvel podcast in the game.